Hello, my name's Paul and I'm with Norske Prepper. Today I'm going to go through some of the fundamental things that you need to have in a bug out bag, what you need to consider when putting your bug out bag together, and I'm going to point out some of the main mistakes that people make when they're actually putting a bug out bag kit together. So today I have my bag here. Now it just looks like a regular camping backpack. That's because that's what it is. This is what I'm used to. I've been out on dozens of day trips and I've been camping lots of this backpack. This one here is a Norrøna Recon pack. It's 125 litre with the side pockets. I don't have them on, and it's set up for summer. If it was winter, then I'd have the side pockets on because I'd need more room. So the bag, and including all the contents, weighs 15.4 kilograms, and this is what I would take if I had to head for the hills for whatever reason. Now, when you've got a bug out bag, there are a couple of things that you need to think about. Where are you going? You only have to have a bug out bag if you're trying to get from point A to point B. A bug out bag isn't for you to go out and live in the woods for the rest of your life. So you need to think, okay, how long is it going to take me on foot to get from point A to point B? Or if you're going to be driving in a car, well then maybe you want an emergency bag. But this is for a backpack that you're going to have on your back when you're traveling by foot. Now, I like to have it quite light. I'm turning 43 this year. My joints aren't as young as they used to be. And so a very important thing to understand is if you're in a stressful situation, you may injure yourself, you may run into some problems, where having a lighter backpack is going to help you to be far more mobile and far faster on your feet. So without further ado, let's start to get into some of the things that I have in my backpack. And like I said, this isn't very different from camping. So the first thing that I'll go through really is my sleep system, because I think that a sleep system is really, really important to have. If you have good rest, you can face the day quite easily. If you have terrible rest, then you're in trouble. So I've got a silk sleeping bag liner that I use. Here, I've got a tarp. Now, I don't always use this tarp, but this is a very, very good Sil-nylon tarp. And if I just want to set up really quick, chances are I'll probably use the tent that I have, but the tarp allows me for some extra room and it's quite low profile. So if I just needed to have a low profile camping spot, then I'd probably use the tarp because it attracts far less attention. I know I'm a bit of a wuss, but I like to use a pillow because I enjoy getting my rest. If you're going to be trekking all day, then you want to have a pillow as well. What I have then is I have an insulated inflatable mat. Now this is rated at, I think, at R5.5 or R6. So this will do even in winter temperatures, you know, if it doesn't get too cold. Now it's really important that if you have one of these types of bags, you don't inflate it with your mouth, because the condensation inside the bag then will cause it to cool down. So I also have an inflation bag, which I'll show you guys later. And then I have a down sleeping bag. Now I know people like the wool blankets and all of that kind of thing. I don't worry about the wool blanket if I'm going to have a bug out bag. I want something light, I want something warm. So I go with down because I know where I'm heading to. And at most, even if I have to lay low and wait until the road clears, it's only going to be 2 or 3 days, and this will get me by with that. Right, so that's all the sleeping equipment I have. So again, what I have the sleeping bag, I have the pillow, I have the liner, I have an inflatable mattress, and then I have my tarp. Now all of this stuff is used. I've used it many, many, many times out in the field, and it's all tested. So I know that this stuff works. So then let's have a look at some of the next stuff that I have in my top pocket. So in the pocket that I have above my head on the backpack, I have a couple items here which are quite important. So one of the first items is I have a 3 litre water bag here, and I have the drinking hose. Now inside the water bag I have the handle and I have a strap, so that if I come across some water or something like that, I can scoop it up, I can hang it on the tree while I'm camping, and then I've actually got some reserve water and I just squeeze on the bite nozzle and use that for my cooking and filling up my water bottle. On top of that, I don't carry a stainless water bottle or anything like that. I just have one of these Platypus bags because it's nice and light. Like I said, I want to keep things light. If I'm going to purify the water, I have my camp kettle here, and I just put the water in here and I boil it if I need to purify it. Now, living in Australia, I would have to purify all my water. Living in Norway, I barely have to worry about that. If it's snow melt, then I know the water's going to be clean. So the other things that I have in my bag then, in the top pocket, I have my toiletries, and I have toilet paper. I've got mosquito coil. I've got some insect repellent to rub on my skin. I've got deodorant crystal. I've got some liquid soap, and then I've got my toothpaste and my toothbrush in a separate Ziploc bag. Now, I love these Ziploc bags because they're light and I can see what's in it, so I don't have to go rifling through my bag. The next bag that I have is basically the bag that I use for my coffee, and you know, if I'm going to eat something. Now, I have one of these folder cups. I think they're fantastic. They fold up nice and small. You don't burn your hand when you're drinking hot coffee with it, and I always have that handy. I also have a Sea to Summit spork. I've tried all different kinds of sporks, titanium ones, everything like that. I like these plastic ones the best. They're the best I've found to cook with. I drill a hole in mine and I always put a little rope on there so I can hang it up so I can find it. Now, I use a bright spork because I've lost a lot of these as well. This one here is the longest I've ever owned one for, and this one's probably about 6 or 7 years old now after I put that rope on the handle. So I have this here as well. And then what I also have in one of these zippable pockets on the inside of this top pouch, I have my headlamp. I have my Opinel, I don't even know what number this is, but this is a fairly light pocket knife. I just have an Opinel pocket knife, very plain pocket knife, but again, it's very light. And I have 2 Bic lighters. Right, so that's what I have in the top pocket. Now, I also have a zippable pocket underneath. Let's see, oh yes, and then I also have my USB-C charging cable, and you'll see why I have that in a moment as well. So that's what I have there in that top pocket. Now, inside, I also have a pocket that zips up, and that's where I just keep another spare Bic lighter. I don't think you've ever got enough Bic lighters. So let's have a look inside the bag then, and I'll open this up. Now, since we've just spoken about the sleep system, I have this 3FUL gear tent. This is a very, very lightweight tent, and it's like a TP tent. So at a pinch, it'll fit about 3 people in there. Comfortably, it'll fit 2. And it's like a Taj Mahal with 1 person and the dog that I normally go camping with. So this is a very, very light tent. I don't see the point of having several bivy bags and ponchos and all of that kind of stuff. I think that with the tent, with the tarp, I think I'm more than set with, you know, what I need when I'm out. And like I said, you know, I've been all over the mountains in Norway. I've been through the forest. This is what I use all the time when I'm out there. So the reason I had that USB-C cable is because a lot of the times when I'm out for extended periods, I might be out for 3, 4, 5 days. I also take this solar charger with me as well. I use this to charge up my mobile phone, and if I have a radio with me, I charge my radio with this as well. This is fairly heavy. It's probably about half a kilo with all of this stuff. If I was somewhere close by, I probably wouldn't worry about this if I was only gone for 2 or 3 days, because you know, my phone will last that long without this. But if I wasn't sure how long I'm going to be out, then I'd definitely take this with me. Now, some advice: if you're going to be getting some solar chargers like this, get one that's at least 21 watts, because that'll allow you to use your quick charge 3.0 on your phone, and it'll charge it up very quick. The bigger the solar panel, the better it's going to charge when you've got low light conditions. So this one here is quite large. It's a 28 watt solar panel. It's very, very water resistant, very robust. I've used this one a lot and it works really well. So that's my recommendation for solar panels. Now next, I have, and again, this is a bit of a luxury item, but it weighs nearly nothing, but I just have a foam pad that I use to sit on, because oftentimes it's raining and nothing more miserable than having wet pants and wet underwear and having jock rot and itchy butt. So I use this to sit on, and it weighs nearly nothing. Another reason why this is really good, if you spring a leak in your sleeping mattress, especially if you're using down and it starts to crush out. You can put this under your hip so that you don't feel the cold through coming up through the ground. So this here can be a lifesaver if you end up with a hole in your sleeping mat. So that's one of the reasons why I carry that. I learned that through experience. One of the other things that I take with me now, I know people like their big knives and all of that kind of thing, but you've seen that this is my knife. I'm not planning on chopping massive trees down and splitting wood or anything like that. I'm just planning on getting from point A to point B. So this is the knife that I carry. And I carry this silky Gomboy saw. Now I choose to carry a larger saw because I think that the efficiency that this gives me, and it's far less effort to cut something that's quite large, and I know that that will burn for quite a while. Now, I don't take a stove with me if I know that it's a season where I can light fires. Now, let's face it, if it's a get out of Dodge situation, you know, no one's going to be following any of the rules or anything like that. So no one's going to be following any of the laws with regards to, you know, having a contained fire or anything like that. So you could dig a fire pit, you could scrape away all the grass and debris so that you don't spread fire. You could build your fire on a rock or something like that. So if I want to travel light, I would do it that way. I would take a saw and I have my matches. So I'd dig a fire pit with a sharpened stick, and then I would just build my fire in there, and I'd do all my cooking and everything on the coals. So when it comes to the cooking, I don't go really fancy with the cooking. I don't have any food that you're going to need to fry. That's intentional because if you're frying, that smell, it goes really, really far. So I just have a really simple cooking pot, anodized aluminium cooking pot here. And it's very simple. It's cheap and it works. I've had this one for about 15 years and I use it every time I go camping. And yeah, it just does the trick. So like I said, be careful of anyone that's telling you about what bug out equipment you should have if it all looks all shiny and new, because it means they haven't used it and they haven't tested it out. Right, so after that, what I have is I have the food container or the food bag. So in my food bag here, I have quite a lot. So here I've got some protein bars. Again, I've got a Bic lighter, I've got some matches, I've got condiments here, I've got sugar, I've got spices that I use for my soups and everything like that. I've got my coffees here, I've got some hot chocolate as well, got a box of matches. You know, I have a lot of the stuff, salt and pepper, everything that makes a meal worth having. If you're slogging and you're on your feet all day, you're really going to want to have a good meal. So make sure that you take the stuff that you know is going to afford you a good meal. After that, then I have a separate bag here just for my breakfast. Inside here, what I have is I have powdered milk and I have oats. With those rolled oats, I also have raisins mixed in with them. So that's my breakfast every time I go camping. I just put a handful of dried milk, handful of oats, and those oats are already pre-mixed with the raisins, and that forms a hearty breakfast. Then if we're talking about the main meals and stuff, I just have some pasta. It cooks very quickly. I have just quick noodles. These are just really if I want a snack and I need something to eat really quick. Like these aren't very nutritious, but they'll give me the energy I need. Then after that, what I have, and I don't have any of these MREs or any of this fancy stuff that a lot of people have because, you know, I don't think that you should even need to spend a fortune. So I've got some stroganoff sauce that I can make here, and I can mix in the milk powder with that, and I can have it with the pasta. I have split pea, so I can make this in 5 minutes, and I can make a pea mash, and I can mix that in with the pasta, or I can have the stroganoff sauce or whatever on top of that, and have 2 packets of that. I have chicken chili in there. And then I have cheese sauce and spices in a pasta bag. And then I have some Bergen fish soup, which I can boil up really quickly. Now, this food here, most of these packets here will feed about 4 people if you have mince and pasta and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't have that and you don't have meat with it, it'll feed probably 2 people. So here, between the pasta and all the noodles and all the food I have here, this is food enough for probably 3 days. And that's fairly, you know, that's not slack going, that's out there and trekking and all the rest of it, because I've got quite a lot of pasta, I have a lot of noodles, I've got stuff that's quite energy dense. On top of that, of course, I have a lot of oats there that I mix up with the meal as well. Now, another thing that I have You see, I'll get this out. I just have some paracord here with the reflective stripes on it. You never know when you're going to need paracord. Sometimes it's a very, very handy thing. So this is this is one of those emergency things I take with me. I've never needed it yet, but I have it anyway. Another emergency thing that I have, which I didn't tell you guys about, is I just have a little tube of glue here. And this glue is designed to stick to all different kinds of plastics and fabrics. If something tears and I need to put it together, then I've got this glue here to do that job. Then I have this bag here. Now what this bag is for is it allows me to inflate it with air, and then I undo this valve, and with that valve undone, I stick that valve onto my sleeping mattress, I roll the top of the bag and I squeeze the air in, and it's with this bag here that I can actually inflate my sleeping mattress. This is great because it stops the condensation from going into a sleeping mattress. Now what I have in here is I have a high quality rain jacket, I've got extra pair of underpants, and I've got 2 pairs of woolen socks. So I take the extras there because, you know, if you're trekking far, you don't want to be doing that with wet socks. That's one of the #1 priorities that I think a person needs, actually dry socks and dry underwear. If you get jock rot while you're out there, you know, trekking for kilometers and kilometers, you're going to be very, very miserable. And then one of the other things that I have is my first aid kit. Now, I don't take a huge trauma kit. Now, you know, I was a firefighter EMT, so I know all about, you know, first aid and doing first aid on people, but I'm not expecting to come across any people with bullet holes in them. If I need to, you know, stop some bleeding or something like that, I can always put a belt around it and strap up the belt. So I'm not really interested in taking a full trauma kit. What I have here is more than enough for what I would expect, and I could stabilize a person quite well with this. If this wasn't enough, I also have a buff that is in this green bag here with the jocks and socks. I can whip this buff out, and I can also use that to stop some bleeding if I need to. So they're the main items that I have now. These are the things that I would recommend if you need to get from point A to point B and you know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, I would argue you shouldn't be bugging out in the first place. You should just be staying at home because you have no idea where you're going to, and it's far more dangerous away from your home than it is in your home, unless there's roving bands of marauders. Now, if I was having to go somewhere that I was unfamiliar, what I would consider is I would then actually consider taking a compass. Now, everyone always has a dozen compasses and all of this kind of signaling equipment, all of that kind of thing. But one of the things I very rarely see when people are talking about their compasses are actually the maps that they need. A compass without a map often isn't going to help you very much if you're not already familiar with the area. And if you're really familiar with the area, I would argue that you probably don't even need the compass in the first place. But if I was going to go with the compass, what I'd recommend is I'd recommend a silver or a Sunto compass. Now, I've had this one here for years and years. It's a great compass because I can use it for signaling. I can use it for doing orienteering and all of that kind of thing. It's a wonderful compass. So this is my compass of choice, is this Sunto, and I'm not even sure what model it is. It's a Sunto MC2. And I've had this one here for about 14 years now. Inside here, I have some note paper, and I also have a couple little IKEA pencils. And these IKEA pencils are great. They don't cost anything. They're cheap. They're easy to sharpen, and I just sharpen them with my pocket knife, and with that I can take notes. I also have a highlighter so I can mark things on the map if I need to. But like I said, I already know where I'm going, so this isn't really necessary. This is only when I'm in the mountains and it's a new area that I'm unfamiliar with. Now, if I'm actually going to be concerned about building fires and drawing attention to myself, then I would go a different way. I wouldn't worry about even taking this saw with me. I'd just take the pocket knife, I'd leave the saw at home, and instead what I would do is I'd bring something that I can cook my food in, and so that I can cook it really quickly and then hit the road again if I need to be really fast on my feet. So I have one of these Coleman Feather 442s. They don't make these anymore, but you know, any of these dual fuel stoves or multi-fuel stoves will do the trick. I like this one. This was recommended to me by a friend that was in the Special Forces, so I've had this one for, again, probably 15 years or something like this. I've camped lots and I've used this. It's bulletproof, and I'd make sure that I have some extra fuel for it. Because if I have to lay low on the side of the road for a while and wait until the traffic subsides, then this is certainly going to do the job. And you know, with this filled with fuel and with this filled with fuel, I'll get probably close to 5-6 days of warm meals for breakfast and dinner from that amount of fuel. Now, there are some luxury items that you can also include. For example, if you're going to be going with other people and you need to communicate with each other, you can just take a walkie-talkie. Now, I don't have very fancy walkie-talkies at 2-ways. This one here is just a Xiaomi. It costs hardly anything. I can charge it from USB cable, which is really handy. And it can pick up FM radio, so I can also stay connected with the rest of the world. And the range on this one isn't terrible, and I don't need a license to use it. So I have this one. I use this when I go camping with my son, and this works well. I don't need anything fancier than this. Another thing that a lot of people recommend all the time is they take binoculars and all of those kind of things. If I thought that I was going to run into people who are hostile, then I'd take some binoculars. And I'd make sure that I actually have some fairly decent ones. I have really good binoculars, but that's because, you know, I like optical stuff. So I've got some Swarovskis here, some really nice ones. And I take these on occasions when I go to the mountains and I want to watch the eagles and the hawks and stuff like that. But in general, I mean, this weighs quite a lot. So if I didn't think I'd need it, then I wouldn't take it with me. The other thing that people take all the time is they'll have all of these emergency kits and all of that kind of stuff and snare wire. And I mean, I'm not planning on going out into the forest and living there for 1,000 years. But if I knew that I was going somewhere where I know there's going to be fish, then I'd take my little collapsible rod and I'd take my little fishing tackle box that's got all the lures and hooks and sinkers and everything like that I normally use. Now, again, this is something I've used a lot. I've tested it. I know it works. It has equipment in there that I'm familiar with. If you're taking these little emergency kits and pouches and all that stuff and you've never used it, just leave it at home because you have no idea how to use that equipment and it's just going to get you into trouble. Another thing that is also very important to just iterate on a little bit, make sure that as part of your kit, you have yourself a really good pair of shoes and that those shoes are worn in. Now, I've got some Scarpas here, but I have about 2 or 3 pairs of hiking boots. These Scarpas, I've been all over the mountains. I've done probably a few 100 kilometers with these, and they're comfortable and they work. So make sure that you've got a good pair of worn-in boots. The other thing I'd recommend as well is make sure that you've got yourself a robust watch. I just use a Casio. I don't even know what this is, but it's a solar-powered watch. So it's a ProTrek. I've had this watch for years. It's tough, it's bulletproof, there's nothing that can go wrong with it. So this is the equipment that I'd have in my bug out bag. I choose to travel light and I choose to travel fast. So I don't want a bug out bag that weighs more than, say, 20 kilograms. So what's that? That's around 40 pounds. Instead, mine weighs about 15.5 kilograms, which means I can move quite fast with this. I don't have to slow down, and it has the things that I'm familiar with. All of this equipment I've used many times. I'm familiar with it. I can set it up even in the dark. I know the functions on everything. I know how to repair it if it needs to be repaired. So all of this stuff here I'm really familiar with. The other thing that you need to be aware of, if you're going to hump it and you're going to have this equipment on your back, buy the best backpack that you can afford. Now, this Norrøna backpack, this is a really expensive backpack. I think the prices have gone up on them. Now, I suffered some back injuries from my time in the fire brigade and lifting heavy things and running up and down stairs with breathing apparatus and hoses and all that kind of thing. So I need a good backpack. This backpack is really expensive, but you get what you pay for. It's bulletproof and it's going to last. So there you have it, guys. That's the sleep system, including the tent, the cooking, all the toiletries, including the backpack, the shoes, you know, your communication if you need it, and your electronic devices with the charging, and all the food items as well that I would carry. And this pack here would do me for anywhere between 2, 3, and at a stretch 4 days, and it would get me to where I need to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any further comments, please comment down below. But like I said, you know, there's a million videos on bug out bags and EDC and all of this kind of stuff. If it's brand new equipment, just be cautious about what advice you're going to listen to, because there's a very good chance that these people have got this equipment, they've never even used it or tested it out. So buy the stuff that you think you're going to need, test it. You'll find that you'll probably use maybe 15% of it. The rest of it you'll just push to the side in the same way that I have once you know what works. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. We have more videos on the Norsk Prepper YouTube channel. Feel free to follow us on Instagram as well. Leave us a like and subscribe. Thanks, guys. I'll catch up with you later.